With one LinkedIn message, the value of my car dropped over 65%. In the last 9 years of running and owning Xtreme Xperience, I have bought and sold well over 200 supercars. I'd like to think I have a system. I do have a system, and it works most of the time, but every once in a while I learn a painful lesson and I figure out how to make that system better for the next time. I'd like to believe I'm great at it, and I'd like to believe I've figured it out and often win, but I don't always win. There are a few memories that will be with me for quite some time about the time I bought a supercar and it didn't work out the way I thought it would be. And quite honestly, I see it play out in the fleet that we maintain every day, because fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm actually in a shame on me situation right now, quite honestly. When the 570S first came out, where's this going? McLaren's! When the 570S first came out, we bought it brand new. Rule number one, I said, do not buy a car brand new. But our customers wanted to drive it. It was a beautiful red version. It was VIN number 9. Whatever it was, I needed to have it. Our customers needed to have it. And the doors went up, Ed, you know. The doors go up on only fewer and fewer supercars these days. I bought the car. I paid full price. If you don't know much about McLarens, you need all the support in the world to keep them road worthy. You need dealership support, you need manufacturer support, because everything that the dealership does to your car, they have to run through the manufacturer. You need dealerships. There's only a few of them in the nation. So there was one in northern Chicago where I'm from, and we bought it from the dealership with their commitment to support us with this car. And sure enough, a couple months into the year, I think the first thing that went wrong was the windshield wiper fluid reservoir exploded on track. Minor problem, and rendered the car undrivable because of the fluids and other things that were everywhere. So we had to clean it up at least and get a new reservoir, which turned into a whole process of going back to the UK to ask permission for a better type of reservoir. And they had to ask us why we had this type of reservoir. So we kind of lied about it and said, oh, don't worry about it, send us whatever, because we knew we didn't want to completely show our hand. Then the electronics started to go out on the car and we had to kind of show our hand. So we told them the VIN and we told them that I owned the car and I took it on the racetrack. But they Googled me and they figured out who I was, and they saw me letting other people drive this 570s, red 570S on the racetrack. And they called me and I think hit me up on LinkedIn and said, this is not how we intended our car to be used. We are revoking your warranty. We are red flagging your VIN number. So if you try to sell this car to anybody else, it will show that you were a rental company racing a McLaren that was designed for personal use. With one LinkedIn message, the value of my car dropped over 65%. And I think I unloaded that 180-something thousand 570S for barely over 100 grand. It went from the reservoir to the electronics that then caused the motor to have some issues. But by that point, it didn't matter because they had pulled the warranty before the motor and electronic issues. So I had to not only pay to fix the motor, which therein lies the 65% depreciation. So I had to pay to fix all that just to get the car valued back over. I think it was down under 80 grand in the as-is condition that it was in. So I had to unfortunately throw all my rules out the window, eat it, get burned hardcore on a McLaren, and vow to never buy a McLaren again. And what did I do in 2020? I bought 4 or 5 McLarens. And I said, fool me once, shame on you, this one is on me. I'll figure out what to do. If I maintain a big enough fleet, I can give the customers what they want. They can drive the McLaren, and when they break down, I'll be able to sell them. So kind of a win-win, because I took what I learned from the first one and stuck with the 570Ss. I didn't move up to the 720s or the LTs. I stayed with the 570S. So I was able to get later VIN numbers. I was able to buy them much depreciated already, and I was able to buy them with a few thousand miles on them. So my car buying advice was relevant here, because I got a good price on the car. A lot of the kinks have been worked out with 2,000-3,000 miles on the car, and I was able to run these cars for a while. As predicted, each and every single one of them broke down. I didn't get the dealer support, unfortunately, that I was guaranteed, that I was promised. So shame on me for not seeing that coming. But my team in-house, way better now than they were a few years ago, was able to get these cars roadworthy, and we retailed them. So I bought the cars wholesale in the 160s. I retailed them for high 150s, and I walked away. So I'm sorry, McLaren, but your support system is not there, and I think I dodged a very precise second bullet by only millimeters by fixing these cars in-house and getting them retailed. And I was fixing stuff that should have all been under warranty, but without the dealer support, it wasn't there. So at least I learned how to buy them right the second time, but I didn't avoid them breaking down. So that first McLaren, that was the time I got tanked. I got bombed. I lost my shirt, my shoes, and my belt on buying a car. For every story like the McLaren, there's probably another story, just probably, about a car that maybe I shouldn't have made as much money as I made on it, because maybe it had a little grass between the tire and the rim, or it had a little Bondo somewhere under the hood, but I'm sure no one is watching that's driving those cars. But we were able to do some fancy footwork and get more on some cars than maybe we should have anyway. So it all works out. For every loss, there's a win, but careful with new cars, and especially foreign exotics produced in England. That's weird. I drive Land Rovers and McLarens. You'd think I'd learn. I guess not. The second most popular question that I get asked after what do you drive is, where's the Bugatti? We'll never have a Bugatti, and everyone who asks will never pay to drive a Bugatti, based on the simple equation of how much I charge you to drive a Ferrari, broken down MSRP, time on track, depreciation, there's your price. I could do the same thing with the Bugatti. I could put anything in that equation and it will mill you out an answer. So I'd love to show up with a Bugatti one day and see if people will put their money where their mouth is. But other than that buzzword, I don't think that there are really any cars that we have missed out on. I think that there is a whole category of cars that we're not sure what would happen. And this is where the investor in me decides, do we pull the trigger on these cars or not? We get a lot of feedback from people about race cars. Where are your challenge Ferraris? I'd love to drive one. Or a Trofeo Lamborghini. Or, an M series BMW. Or a front engine GT car like an Aston Martin or a Bentley GTC or something like that, or GT. So there are a lot of cars in this category of we'd all love to drive them. And I have to unfortunately answer, well, there's one more step to that decision-making process. Keep in mind that we are a mobile operation. I rent tracks all over the world, but I don't own those tracks. And so we have to put stuff in a truck and get it to the track. So what do you want to drive most is really the question that I have to ask. And if you tell me what you want to drive most, I'll buy it. I don't care what your answer is. Quite honestly, the secret sauce behind what I buy is exactly that. If you go on our social media every year around this time, we're posting, what do you want to drive? And we look at the responses and then I go buy the stuff. And that's how we end up with the new cars every year. So we always get a few people who want to drive those cars, myself included. I'd love to take some of those cars on the track. But what do you want to drive most always comes back to the habitual offenders, your Ferraris, your Lamborghinis, your Porsches. After those three, the McLaren was 4, but I had to step in and put my foot down on that one. So everything kind of after Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Porsche is completely fluid, and we will change it every year based on the feedback we get from our participants and our social interaction. So the one car that we haven't had that I think we're missing out is a Bugatti. I'd love to put a lot of people's money where their mouth is, but I'm also not going to go buy a Bug because they just keep going up, up, up. And so unfortunately, that's probably the one that got away. That's the one that gets all the press, right? Because everything we buy is what got good press because you saw it and now you want to drive it. So that's the one that gets a ton of press and nobody can drive. And we're in the business of giving you the opportunity to drive what you can't drive. That's the one that kind of hangs out there just a little too out of reach, a little too unrealistic. Anything other than that, though, I'll buy it for you. Kind of as a blanket statement, if it's under 5, you can keep it, preferably under 4 as well, because you can get a lot of car for under 400 grand. After that, you're paying for stuff you don't need. I mean, these cars right now, we're paying well over 3 for Huracan Evos and even these 488s these days, let alone F8s. So a lot of good stuff for the 3s. Happy to buy it for you. I just need to know what you want to drive.
Autotempest.com is the fastest and most powerful way to shop for your next car. They compile the results from all the major listing sites into one place. In fact, they just added another one, Facebook Marketplace. Just like they've always let you do with Craigslist, now you can search Facebook Marketplace nationally at the same time. No more typing in cities and adding your search radius and all that stuff. They put all the results into one place, and I love them for that. We appreciate their support of VINwiki and CarTrek and everything that we do here, but honestly, it's where I start most of my mornings, looking for whatever's gonna fill the next garage spot here. So check them out now at the link in the description below to find your next car. Autotempest.com, all the cars, one search.